Hello, it is me, the political kid, and today, we're doing something different today. And if you don't know, Hearts of Iron 4 is a strategy game that has been around for a couple of years, and if you're a real fan, is one of my favorite games, even as a kid, because it is both difficult and exciting if you're able to get into it and actually understand how the game works. Now, the base game sucks relatively, considering that the devs at Paradox Interactive kind of just want to price gouge you until you basically run out of money. Because if you buy the full every single DLC, everything that's kind of needed to play with anybody else, if you want to play like multiplayer or something, that's going to run you up like $200 nowadays. That's just unreasonable, like at all. There should be no game that costs $200 in my opinion. But hey, it's a fun game, especially for those who actually want to play it. Now, there's a very good culture, actually not that good, but it's both good and bad in the fact that their fans are really devoted in a way that they create alt history scenarios, or they build on the focus on the game, which is World War II, or they even expand it to the modern day. And that has also included to a modern day mod called The Fire Rises. Now, if you don't know what it is, it's basically what if COVID in 2020 was just worse overall in the world, basically. Well, like, caught on fire, basically. Because in this game, the American Civil War happens, there's a Saudi Civil War, there's a Russia versus European NATO thing, and there's just a lot of fun to it since unless you're like 2 years old, we've lived through this, and we were a part of this, and this could have happened. This is realistic in the ways that people could have thought this way, and people could have acted this way objectively. And I will be on this dying hill that The Fire Rises as a whole is probably the best game of all time. And I know that's not true, especially to most people, but I will just say that due to the fact that I love this and it's very good. Now, I feel like the most important thing we need to talk to is America. Now, if you don't remember, and again, if you're 2 years old, the 2020 election was probably the most divisive one, even more than 2024, just due to the fact that COVID had really hit us. We had a objectively unpopular president, and the Democrats picked another old establishment type for their candidate. And due to this fact, everything was so divided. And if the COVID virus had just been a little bit more deadly, and if there was more problems going on in the world, like the oil crisis that could have happened, it could have been a lot worse. Especially when unpopularity was very acceptable, since both parties had chosen very unpopular candidates. And due to this fact, extremism in this timeline would rise, including the Patriot Front, which is a kind of nationalist, leaning fascist kind of group in the Northeast. And then there's the American People's Liberation Front, which is basically a communist kind of China aligned group in California. And due to this fact, at least in how many games usually have this, and you could have Trump win in this timeline, usually Biden wins. And due to the fact that he's both unpopular and Trump actually has a good chance of going up against him if he were to actually rise an insurrection against him in this timeline, he would actually proclaim himself as the actual president in a NORAD center in Denver, even though it's a liberal state, and we'll get into that soon. But due to this fact, there would be a lot of mismanagement, the economy would still be in the trash, and things would just get a lot worse over time due to more political divide, especially after the January 6th attack that would happen still in this timeline. And the fact that most people in the Midwest are aligned with Trump in this timeline, and there's a lot of different third-party independent groups that are willing to go against the establishment, and we will see that later. Now, due to this fact, What do you think happens next? Although we love to talk this in political circles, there wasn't going to be a civil war in our era, and there never will be unless something drastic happens, like what would happen in this timeline. And due to this fact, when Wall Street would collapse due to the fact that the economy would be even worse due to the fact that Trump and Biden would kind of manage two different economies at the same time. And when it finally got to the kind of world economic class, everything hit the fan. And then the Denver government with Trump and the Washington, D.C. government with Biden would clash in this timeline. And due to this fact, do you think they just control two halves of the entire country? No. No, I mean, they control a bit of it, but there's a lot of independent groups that go against state governments who are more independent leading, or they're just fighting against their own independent groups that are very extremist. And due to this, it would get a bit messy. Now, remember the Patriot Front, the American Liberation Army, and the two sides with Trump and Biden, this would also lead to more proning to a foreign intervention, especially with China going against Taiwan, due to the fact that even though the 7th Fleet would stay in the Taiwan Strait, they would still invade due to the fact that the U.S. wouldn't be there to help defend them against, or to help defend Taiwan from China. And then the Russian President Putin dies of COVID in this timeline, and he's replaced by Medvedev, usually. I mean, you can choose to choose a communist or an imperialist, but usually in games, it's Medvedev. And he starts getting more hungry for Eastern European land, also going against Kazakhstan and the Caucasus. While they're still fighting, they're fighting along the Mississippi River. This isn't a good thing at all for both sides, considering that it just turns into trench warfare until the Patriot Front unifies New England. Then, with the other far right groups in Michigan, which are very far right, like that far right, if you know what I mean, they attack the Union, and they quickly get into DC without the proper fortifications from the Biden forces, and they would collapse in this timeline. Then that's usually how it happens. The communists are able to unify the West Coast, and then usually, and I do mean this usually, since there's a lot of alternate things you could do in this kind of gameplay, and it's really subjective, honestly, but usually gets into a three-way war between the communists, the Trumpists, and the Patriot Front slash very far right groups. And it doesn't go well at all. But that's kind of the neat thing of this game. And I will go on this and defend it for all my will, even though I am a kid, even though, like, this is a very extreme group and I do not really support any political ideology in this game. It gives us an opportunity to say, hey, we lived through this, and it'd be interesting if this World War kind of stuff would happen in this timeline, and that's kind of it. America could be united, and it has been for 250 years, but it's also a good reminder, this game, to us, to show us that it's not impossible for us to be divided, especially that much. So we should probably become more peaceful to each other and be more respectful to each other. Obviously, that's a corny ending and like life lesson, but hey, I mean, it's a good life lesson otherwise, especially in these times. But I will say it is a good game, objectively, and there's a lot of mechanics that are going on, especially in the midst of the Civil War in this timeline. And there's a lot of other stuff I could have covered, but I feel like since I am an American, I would go over that subjective stuff, or the American Civil War, but the Second American Civil War. But that's just me, and if you are somehow desperate enough to actually play this game, you should probably get a really good computer since it's really hard to run on, and it does cost a lot of money. But if you do somehow have the game and you don't have the Fire Rises, play it. It's kind of good as a game. That's gonna be it, guys. I post later. I'll do more political stuff, but that's me, and I'll see you guys later. And last announcement: the the next the next 70 people who get me to 1,800 subscribers will get a special shout out when I eventually get 1,800 subscribers, and I will give you all a shout out if you make sure your subscribers are public so I could actually see who's subscribing to me and I could give you all a shout out. So thank you. That's it, and I'll see you guys later.